I'm now going to go over the Tented Arch quiz, and in this process, of course, I want you to look at your sheet and follow along. I'm going to be pointing out the Tented Arch patterns, but I also want you, as you recognize the plain arch patterns, or the A's, I want you to mark them again too. So in this case, if you haven't marked them, go ahead and mark through them as I do each one. Of course, what we're going to be looking for is the camping tent, or the upthrusting pointed ridges in the very center of the print. And I use the camping tent analogy to keep these ridges in mind while you're looking for them. At this point right now, I'm going to consider ridge pattern 1, 2, and 3. I don't see anything similar to a camping tent in either of these, so you should determine that none of these prints here were tented arches. Let me now draw your attention to number 4, 5, 6, and 7. And hopefully number 4 you'll immediately recognize as our plain arch. Number 5, I'm hoping that you recognize what's very important, the very center of the print. Let me make no mistake that even if I were to cover up this area, it would possibly look like a plain arch, but this ridge right here, and I'll follow along, that comes up straight, and this ridge which comes from the left side and points upward, that is the tent formation, and that is what gives this pattern the tented arch classification. I think it's worth noting that if you were to cover with a circle here, like I have, if you were to cover that area right there, one would think that it would be a possible plain arch, and you wouldn't know if there was a camping tent in the center. If you had this much information, or even as little as that much information, you could classify the print. You would say it is a plain arch referenced to a tented arch, or vice versa, because you would not know. You wouldn't have enough information, knowing that even though you have all of this ridge information here, you cannot classify the print because you do not know what's going on in the very center. And when I remove this, you see the upthrusting, the camping tent formation, which gives this the tented arch classification. Let's go to 6, 7, and 8, and you should not recognize either the plain arch or the tented arch pattern in any of these 3. Let's consider now 9 and 10, and hopefully you are recognizing that this is not a plain arch, but because of this ridge right here, it is a tented arch. Let's go back to that test that I used before, or that example, where I covered part of the pattern. And again, if you were to have a pattern with all of this information and this part was not there, you would not be able to accurately classify it as a plain arch or a tented arch. But if you're going to, or if you move the barrier, this should be quite clearly recognized as a tented arch. All right, let's consider 11, 12, and 13. I should hope that you wouldn't recognize anything that appears to be a camping tent. And hopefully you would recognize this print here as the plain arch. Let's go with 14, 15, and 16. Certainly 14 and 15 are our plain arch patterns, or the A, and this pattern here is not a plain arch or a tented arch, and we don't know what that is yet. 17, 18, and 19, clearly there are no ridges or signs of either of those three being a tented arch, with the exception of 19. There appears that there is a ridge that is rising as in a point, but there is something going on right here, and this does not meet the best classification or our description of a tented arch, though it could be mistaken or recognized as one by some people. Hopefully you immediately recognize this as being a very textbook perfect example of a tented arch. There's some ridge structure damage through here, which is a result of a scar, but it is clearly a tented arch. Quickly, you should be able to recognize that 21, 22, and 23 are not plain arches, nor are they tented arches, and hopefully you recognize that they do have a similar pattern flow, and maybe they are related in some way that we'll find out later. Looking at 24, 25, and 26, 24 looks like a plain arch here. However, it has this ridge formation which curves and returns here, so we cannot classify that as a plain arch nor a tented arch. 25 is obviously not a tented or plain arch, and 26 has these ridges which tend to abruptly end, and if you'll remember, if we use the road test for that, it could not be a plain arch, but in our interpretation of this, we would recognize this as a tented arch. So this is a tented arch right here, primarily because of these two ridges, one here pointing up and this one pointing up. 27, 28, and 29, this is not a plain arch nor a tented arch. Neither is this, and this should be recognized not as a tented arch but a plain arch. Number 30 is definitely not a plain or a tented arch. 31, 32, and 33, hopefully you'll recognize that all three of those are tented arches. This one you may remember, it appears to have two ridges which are pointing up. This would give it the definition of a tented arch. It could also be considered a plain arch if these ridges were connected. So even in with this, or just with this small interpretation right here, it would depend on whether it would be an arch or a tented arch. I will call it a tented arch in the first interpretation. Number 32, though it is somewhat scarred in this tip area, it should be recognized as a tented arch. Number 33 clearly should be identified as a tented arch. What about 34, 35, and 36? 34 is a tented arch, and in particular this ridge right here, which is pointing upward, and this area right here, which could be considered the post of the tent or the tent pole. This pattern is not a plain arch or a tented arch, and hopefully you would recognize this as a tented arch because of this structure right in here. 37, 38, and 39. 37 is not a tented arch. It should not be recognized as a plain arch. 38 clearly is an example of a tented arch. 39 is an example of a plane arch, and hopefully you recognize that as a plane arch. 40 is a clear example of a plane arch. 41, 42, and 43, well, the first two, 41 and 42, should be eliminated as plane or tented arches, and however number 43 is a very high rising tented arch, and the very center is rising very abruptly and with the sharp points here. So this is a tented arch. 44 would be a plane arch, of course. 45, not a plane arch nor a tented arch. Number 46 should be recognized as a tented arch. 47, plane arch. 48, plane arch. 49, tented arch. 50, neither a tented or plane arch. Let's real quickly go over each one of these and look for the tented arch, and they can be, or they should be, marked as a T. Let's go ahead. 1, 2, 3 are not tented arches. 4, plane arch. 5 is a tented arch. 6, 7, 8, not a tented arch. 9 and 10, 9 is not, 10 is a tented arch. Let's go to 11. 11 should be recognized as a plane. 12, 13, not a tented or plane arch. Number 14, a plane arch. 15, a plane arch. 16, 17, 18, and 19, they are not plane nor tented arches. 20, perfect example of a tented arch. 21, 22, 23, not tented nor plane arches. Number 24, remember the curving ridges here. 24, 25, not plane nor tented arches. Number 26 is a tented arch. 27, 28, not a tent nor plane arch. 29, plane arch. 30, neither. 31, 32, 33, 34, all of these are tented arches. 35 is not a tented arch, nor is it a plane arch. 36, tented arch. 37, not a tented arch. 38 is a tented arch. 39 is a plane arch. 40 is a plane arch. 41, 42, not a tent nor a plane arch. 43 is a tent. 44 is an A. 45 is neither tent nor plane arch. 46, tented arch. 47, plane arch. 48, arch. 49, tented arch. And 50, neither tent nor plane arch. So now we have used the analogies and your pattern exemplars to recognize both plane and tented arches. In the next study, you'll be looking for another type pattern and using the tented arch pattern and the plane arch pattern to eliminate the patterns as you recognize them.